What do you mean, all three?
You're some piece of work, you know that. I tried making nice. I tried being reasonable. Forget about it. In this life, you got your work cut out, you play it as a laze, and you don't take it personal.
Doc shambled off, announcing to no one in particular that English food was lousy, which included fisherman's pie, sausage and mash, and bubble and squeak.
Whatever in hell that was.
After slapping some pound notes on the bar, he barged into the night as heedlessly as he'd barged in. Emily lingered for a moment, taking in the notion of Doc's 24-hour window. Subtracting a trip back to Bickington, food, sleep, and a hasty return, that would give him enough time to do what, exactly? Whatever it was, he would certainly start no earlier than the next morning at the opening of the fete. Moving to the far corner of the bar, Emily ordered an Irish coffee and got hold of Maud the second she had a free moment. "So what's the upshot?" Emily asked. Brushing a hank of hair from her ample brow, Maud said,
"Is it what our Cyril is capable of that you're wanting to know? Or is it, will our D.C. Hobbs leave off mucking about, which resulted in his present position? Which do you fancy?"
"I heard something about Hobbs' demotion," said Emily. "From detective sergeant to constable. Got it from Trevor."
"Too chummy by half, I'd say. Whilst not forgetting the last straw. Up to the gills with a few pints he was. Watching a rugby match on me own flat telly when the sword was supposed to have been on surveillance in Brimley."
"But still, assuming he's learned his lesson, do you think he could handle a lady client who's up to something?" Maud's shrug and roll of the eyes was not exactly reassuring. "All right. How about this?" said Emily. "When, at the earliest, would be a good time to run some police matters by our roving constable?"
"Well, seeing that it's yourself and not being at all like yourself, I will ring you as soon as I have word Hobbs is on duty and not lurking about."
"That'd be great. But can I ask how you got a hold of the number of the extension below stairs at Penmead? Given the fact that Constance wants little to do with the outside world?"
"And may I ask what dodgy business you've gotten yourself into?"
When Emily didn't bite, Maud smiled.
Never you mind. So, my girl, we'll both keep our little secrets now, won't we?"
With nothing else for it, Emily nodded and let it go at that. Outside in the damp evening air, Emily found no sign of Cyril and Doc. Except for the sounds of laughter coming from the village hall, the walk down the high street past the castle ruins and the granite-walled green was uneventful. So was the drive back under the darkened sky. Pulling into Penmead, she found the old manor house to be quite still, a sign that perhaps everyone had turned in early. She shut off the engine, got out, closed the car door carefully so it barely made a clunk, and eased past the foliage by the formal garden. But after a few steps, Trevor appeared abruptly. Steered by Trevor over to the trellised shadows, Emily could tell by the way he pressed his fingers to his lips that he was not too pleased. "Did something happen?" asked Emily.
"Actually, yes and no. Amusing by some standards, perhaps. Not to suggest that it wasn't a splendid idea for you to nip down to the village. However, you left me in charge, as it were."
Eventually, Emily managed to pry out of him that, first of all, he had no idea where the storytelling witch Prue had been carrying on about might actually reside.